Janavala Givarai Yashodanandana Bhajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Bhajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachai Jamunatira Vanachai Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, Jaya Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Padaprajakacharya, Ashatara Sata Sri Śrimad, ISKCON BBT Founder, Acharyas of Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopana Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Brajabhumi Namadama Ki Jai. Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Lilachal Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai, Jamunamai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Their most beautiful Lordship, Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai, Samabeta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Going back to home, back to Godhead Ki Jai, ISKCON New York Yatra Ki Jai, Brihad Madanga Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, International Food for Life Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nittai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Śrimad Bhāgavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God and Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, who is the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayeshu badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatittama shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. By regularly attending the Śrimad Bhāgavatam class and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving devotional service unto the personality of God, whose worship with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're continuing reading from the fourth canto of the Śrimad Bhāgavatam. This is chapter 8. Dhruva Maharaj leaves home for the forest. Today's text is 46. Tarunang Ramaniyangam Arunoshtek Kshanataram Panatashayanang Rimnam Sharanyang Karunarnavam Tarunang Ramaniyangam Arunoshtek Kshanataram Panatashayanang Nrimnam Sharanyang Karunarnavam Tarunang Ramaniyangam Arunoshtek Kshanadharam Panatashayanang Nrimnam Sharanyang Karunarnavam. Please chant. Panatashayanang Nrimnam Sharanyang Karunarnavam Tarunang Ramaniyangam Arunoteshtak Nakshanam Panatashayanang Nrimnam Sharanyang Karunarnavam Tarunang Ramaniyangam Arunoshtek Kshanataram Panatashayanang Nrimnam Taranyang Karunarnavam. More, chant. Tarunang Ramaniyangam The more we chant, the more we remember today's verse. I travel a lot with Prahladananda Swami, and when he gives class, at the end of the class, he asks, what was the first word of today's verse? And everybody goes, you can't even remember the first word of the verse. So the way you remember, repetition is the mother of learning. Okay, a few more. Karunam Ramaniyangam Arunoshtek Kshanadaram. Yeah, I had the good fortune of being in many classes given by Srila Prabhupada, and we would chant. There would be at least 15, sometimes 20 men chanting, and then at least a handful of Matajis chanting. And that's how you remember the verses. Okay. Synonyms. Tarunam, youthful. Ramaniya, attractive. Angam, all parts of the body. Aruna Oshta, lips pinkish like the rising sun. Ikshana Adharam, eyes of the same nature. Pranata, one who is surrendered. Ashrayanam, shelter of the surrendered. Nrimnam, transcendentally pleasing in all respects. Sharanyam, the person unto whom it is just worthy to surrender. Karuna, merciful like. Arnavam, the ocean. Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse. Narada Muni continued, the Lord's form is always youthful. Every limb and every part of his body is properly formed, free from defect. His eyes and lips are pinkish like the rising sun. He's always prepared to give shelter to the surrendered soul, and anyone so fortunate as to look upon him feels all satisfaction. The Lord is always worthy to be the master of the surrendered soul, for he is the ocean of mercy. Please repeat. Narada Muni continued. The Lord's form is always youthful. Every limb and every part of his body is properly formed, free from defect. His eyes and lips are pinkish like the rising sun. He's always prepared to give shelter to the surrendered soul. And anyone so fortunate as to look upon him feels all satisfaction. The Lord is always worthy to be the master of the surrendered soul, for he is the ocean of mercy. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Everyone has to surrender to someone superior. That is always the nature of our living condition. At the present moment, we are trying to surrender to someone, either to society or to our nation, family, state, or government. The surrendering process always exists, but it is never perfect because the person or institution unto whom we surrender is imperfect, and our surrender, having so many ulterior motives, is also imperfect. As such, in the material world, no one is worthy to accept anyone's surrender, nor does anyone fully surrender to anyone else unless obliged to do so. But here, the surrendering process is voluntary, and the Lord is worthy to accept the surrender. This surrender by the living entity occurs automatically as soon as he sees the beautiful, youthful nature of the Lord. The description given by Narada Muni is not imaginary. The form of the Lord is understood by the Parampara system. Mayavadi philosophers say that we have to imagine the form of the Lord, but here Narada Muni does not say that. Rather, he gives the description of the Lord from authoritative sources. He is himself an authority, and he's able to go to Vaikuntha and see the Lord personally. Therefore, his description of the bodily features of the Lord is not an imagination. Sometimes we give instructions to our students about the bodily features of the Lord, and they paint him. Their paintings are not imaginary. The description is given through the cyclic succession, just like that given by Narada Muni, who sees the Lord and describes his bodily features. Therefore, such descriptions should be accepted, and if they are painted, that is not imaginative painting. Om Ajnanatimurandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshura Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishnang Shapitang Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati San Padantikam Vandeyahang Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishyavangscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raganatan Batam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangsha Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandho Jagatpate, Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate, Tapta Kanchana Gorangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye, Vancha Kalpatarubhya Shah Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha, Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaisavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So first thing, please don't say Narad. That's Hindiization of Sanskrit. Bhagavatam is presented in Sanskrit. It's Narada. Everybody say Narada, not Narad. That's Hindiization, dropping the last A. But we don't do that in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, every syllable is pronounced. So it's Narada, Narada, not Narad, okay? So Narada Muni is describing, again, as Prabhupada points out, not from imagination. He has seen the Lord. He's coming directly from Vaikuntha. Comes and goes, not just comes and stays and then. No, he comes and goes. We know. I personally heard Prabhupada tell the story of Narada Muni with the cobbler and the Brahmana. Narada Muni, he came across one very highly elevated Brahmana, you know, the kind that can Om, Namo, chant all mantras and light, as Jayadvaita Maharaj likes to say, they can light fire this way and throw water that way and highly qualified, but not necessarily surrendered. And this verse is stressing surrender. So Narada Muni, the Brahmana, being properly cultured, he greeted him and, my dear Narada, please, 3 things you have to do when somebody comes to visit you. Offer them a seat, offer them some refreshment, at least some water, and sweet words. And then you ask why they have come. Not like nowadays somebody knocks on your door and you barely open. You say, who are you? What the hell are you doing here? Why, what do you want? No, that's not culture. Real culture is Atiti Narayan. You may not know the person, but you treat them like Narayan. Prabhupada said so nicely that even if they're an enemy, they will give up their inimical behavior just because you've treated them so nicely. So anyway, the Brahmana greeted Narada Muni very nicely. And then he said, my dear Narada, what is your business? What are you up to? He said, oh, I'm on my way to Vaikuntha to see the Lord. Oh, can you please ask the Lord when I will receive liberation? Sure, I can do that. So the Narada Muni went on and he came across one cobbler doing his business under a tree. Same thing, according to his means, the cobbler invited Narada to sit down, gave him some water. My dear Narada Muni, what are you up to? And Narada Muni again told him, I'm on my way to Vaikuntha to see the Lord. So when you see the Lord, please ask him when I will get liberation. So after some time, Narada Muni comes back along the same path. And first, he sees the Brahmana. Now when he went to Vaikuntha, he asked the Lord, because he promised, when will this nice Brahmana be liberated? The Lord said, not after 1,000 lifetimes. Then we'll see. So Narada Muni was surprised. He said, but why is that, my Lord? He said, he's not very faithful. And when you go back, they will ask you, both of them, this cobbler, he'll be liberated after this lifetime. You ask both of them will ask you, what was the Lord doing? And so you tell them, I was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. And then you'll see by their response why the disparity in the time of liberation. So Narada Muni is coming back along the same path. First he meets the Brahmana, and the Brahmana again greets him very nicely. My dear Narada Muni, did you ask the Lord when I'm getting liberation? He said, yes, I did. So what was his answer? He said, after 1,000 lifetimes, we'll see. He'll say, I don't believe you. Why would the Lord do that? He's feeling that he's such a pukka, Brahmana, qualified. I don't believe you. What was the Lord doing when you saw him? He was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. I can tell you didn't go, or you're just making the whole thing up. So Narada Muni could understand, yes, this person is not very faithful. Then he went to the cobbler. Same thing, greeted him nicely. And then asked, when will I be liberated? And he said, after this lifetime, you will go back to the Lord. So he was very, very pleased. What was my Lord doing when you saw him? Oh, he was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. And the cobbler said, oh, my Lord is so wonderful. Narada Muni said, you believe that? He said, yes, why not? He said, I'm doing my business under this banyan tree, and the banyan tree has so much fruit, And in every fruit, there's so many seeds, and in every seed, there's a tree. So if the Lord can make that arrangement, then why not pull an elephant through the eye of a needle? So it's instructive to us that in all circumstances, we should have full faith in the Lord's ability. There's nothing that the Lord cannot do. Prabhupada gives it as another example, the Battle of Kurukshetra. That the Pandavas and their forces compared to the Kauravas and their forces was like comparing a goldfish to a timingila. You know what is timingila, right? You've heard Prabhupada talk about that. The timingila fish are so big they can swallow whales whole. There may be one or two still in our oceans. We don't know. They don't know everything. They claim to know. They always present so-called science as if they know what they're talking about. But our their departed God brother Sariputta of Bhaktivedanta Institute fame, he used to say, the scientists say, we used to think, but now we know because we've got more information. But he said, nah, it's just the opposite. They used to know, and now they think. They keep changing, in other words, their presentation. And the example I use from my own life, I was born in 52, so when I was in school, they taught, literally, and I went back and checked just to make sure I wasn't imagining. They used to teach us that in the deepest part of the ocean, there can't be any life because there's no light, the pressure is so great, it's so cold, nothing can exist there. That was the scientific presentation of the day. And if you questioned it, you were considered a fool. But lo and behold, when they finally were able to send submersibles down to the bottom, the deepest, like the Mariana Trench, down to the deepest parts of the ocean, they saw there's life there. There's so many fish that exist and different types of arthropods and even types of sharks are down there. And even where there's a crack in the Earth's crust at the bottom of the ocean and there are all this hot gases coming up, sulfuric acid, still there are tube worms that live there very happily. So they had to change what they used to know to now what they think. So we don't take this as science. Science is coming from the Vedas. What the Vedic presentation is very scientific. No, I think, maybe, perhaps. Everything is given precisely. You accept or not. 8,400,000 species of life. Now you accept or you don't, that's up to you. But it's not a guesswork that, maybe this, maybe that. 900,000, Navalakshani, 900,000 species in the water. Now you can go on doing your experiments lifetime after lifetime. And generally it becomes lifetime after lifetime because by the end of one life, they haven't counted all the spiders. And because the guy or girl was spending their whole life meditating on spiders, they have to have first-hand experience in their next life what it is to be a spider. Because we know, Krishna says, whatever you're thinking about at that final moment of death. And this is why our Ratha Yatra is so important. It's giving persons who their entire lives up until that point have simply been focused on matter, how to squeeze happiness out of matter, which is an impossibility. Just like they say, you can't squeeze blood from a turnip. It may look like blood, but it's not blood. You can't squeeze happiness out of the material energy. It's not possible. But they're trying, moment to moment, lifetime after lifetime, keep trying how to squeeze happiness out of this material energy. A place that is dukkalayam ashashvatam, temporary and full of misery, and you're trying to find happiness there. It's not going to work. So when the Rath Yatra cart, and this was not my realization. I heard Tamal Krishna Maharaj speak this in a class once, and then it dawned on me, yes, he's right. Because Prabhupada taught us that at the end of life, your entire life rolls through your mind just like a movie reel going real fast. In other words, you see everything that you've done from birth to death. And your mind tends to latch on to the most prominent feature of that movie reel. So hopefully, somebody who sees Lord Jagannath even once, when their movie reel is flashing back at them, that face, those eyes, unblinking eyes, hopefully will stand out to them. That's one of the main purposes behind putting on this Rath Yatra. Because Lord Jagannath is here for 364 of the 365 days of the year. He's in the temple, doesn't go out. But on that one day, he's so merciful, goes out with his brother Baladev and his sister Subhadra, just to give such persons a chance to snap that one photograph that they may see at the end of life. I just put on my Facebook page a few days ago that, when we go out and do Harinam, you all experience, you go out every day. So many people are taking pictures and videos, and what happens to all those pictures and videos? I think there's probably more Hare Krishna content somewhere on the internet than anything else. Because every time you go out, people are taking videos, they're taking pictures. So I think we should probably encourage them. We should somehow or other get the word out. If you have pictures or videos of Hare Krishnas on the street, please send them to this site. Let's get an idea of how much of that is out there. I'm sure there's a lot. Don't you see? Every time you go out. Like yesterday, I was taking pictures of the Harinam, and I was taking pictures of people taking pictures. And there's so much out there. So we should encourage them. We should encourage them. Don't feel, sometimes the tendency can be to feel like a fish in a bowl and everybody's staring at you. It's okay. Let them stare. Like my dear God brother Naranta, whenever he goes out, for many years I was the director of academic outreach for the New Dwarka Temple, and he was my cohort going along, and he would always tell the students, because they would ask inevitably, what are those lines on your face? And he would say, you see these lines? Keep staring, because the more you stare at it, the more your pious credits will increase. And that's the fact. Just to see a Vaishnavi wearing tilak, which we should do always. Prabhupada had a discussion once, because some devotees were complaining, Prabhupada, some of the devotees are going out for book distribution or Harinam and they're wearing regular clothes. Prabhupada said, you can preach in the clothing of a gentleman or a lady of your country, but there must always be tilak and flag. He called it Shika flag. Always tilak and flag. And so wherever you go, don't be shy, wear tilak. Even just down around the corner. Yesterday, 2 days ago, I bought some avocados from a guy. When you go to Nevin Street Station, where Nevin Street meets Flatbush Extension, there's a fruit vendor there, fruit wallet. It looks like he's from the Middle East or something. So I always have the vendor pick whatever I want. I told him, I said, I want you to pick the avocados, because if they're not good, then I can blame you. So he picked some avocados, he picked some ginger, and then he said, Hare Krishna. Why would he say that if I wasn't wearing tilak? So wherever we go, we should try, always, wear tilak. And in our country, there's nowhere you can't go where you can't do that. In some countries, yeah, it's difficult. Like I was in Bosnia, early 2000s, in Sarajevo. When I got there, devotees were kind of down because they had just been attacked. Harinam party had been attacked a few days before by so-called Muslims. These people are, as we know, for the most part, I'm not picking on Muslims, most so-called religious people are religious in name only. They have no clue of what is the goal of religion. So their religious institutions, temple, church, mosque, they become political playgrounds, places to have romantic connection, places to have business dealings, and therefore the people in general lose faith. Why should I go to a church or a mosque or a temple to meet somebody of the opposite sex? Let me go to a bar. Why should I go to the church or temple or mosque to make some business deals? Just, come to my place, come to my house. We sit down and talk like that. So people lose faith. They don't want to go to these religious institutions anymore. And Prabhupada said that. New Dwarka Temple, I lived in that community for the last 32 years before shifting back to here, which is my hometown. Prabhupada said, prior to our buying this building, it was a church, that he said nobody was coming. But now that we have bought it, so many hundreds of young men and ladies are coming. Why? It's the same building, the same bricks, the same paint. Why? Because we're giving genuine knowledge about God. Not speculative, not I think, maybe, perhaps. Not speculating about oranges of life, that it's chemically based. And then when you say, okay, I'll give you all the chemicals in the world, can you make life? I don't know, I can't say. So then why are you promoting that? So today's purport, Prabhupada is focusing on surrender. And sometimes even within our institution, we forget that it's a process of surrender. We again fall into the habit of thinking, I will do what I like, and I won't do what I don't like. So then where's the surrender? No, surrender means you have to. There is an authority structure, and you have to, because you see that ultimately the supreme authority is Krishna. And this International Society for Krishna Consciousness is a perfect vehicle for accepting surrender to Krishna. You may not think that any one individual in the institution is perfect, but the institution itself is perfect. Prabhupada said, I am ISKCON. ISKCON is not different from me. And he gave us 7 purposes. They're all perfect. Individually, we may not be perfect, just as an individual policeman on the street may not be perfect. Indeed, may even be corrupt. But still, because he's representing the police department, generally speaking, we have to do what they say. If they say stop, you have to stop. If they say go, you have to go. You can't argue. I don't feel like it. No, you can't do that. So similarly, in this institution, Prabhupada said, first of all, there has to be discipline. There's no meaning to the word disciple if there's no discipline. And everybody is ultimately should take initiation. In other words, become a disciple. You can't be a disciple, direct disciple of Prabhupada. He's not here anymore. Some people are promoting that idea. It's not possible. But the disciplic succession continues. The disciplic succession continues. And through your spiritual master, your surrender is being offered to Prabhupada, to Bhaktisiddhanta, all the way back up to Krishna. If you can take initiation posthumously, then why stop at Prabhupada? Why not take initiation from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta or Rupa Goswami or Lord Chaitanya himself? That's not our line. Because in our line, 2 things are recommended: that the prospective disciple should evaluate the prospective guru and vice versa, which means there's possibility of saying no. But in the posthumous paradigm, the guru can't say no. How can Prabhupada tell you no, I don't want you? He's not here. Prabhupada even had to reject at least one person that he had already accepted because it turned out to be a rascal. You've read in the Lilamrita, I'm sure. The person was asking Prabhupada's permission to go to some Babaji in Radhakund and be reinitiated. Prabhupada said, you have my blessing. And after he left, Prabhupada said, black snake. Rejected him. So that personal aspect is removed when you have so-called posthumous initiation. The guru can't tell you no. He can't call you a black snake if you actually are. That personal aspect is removed. And Krishna consciousness is all about personalism. Personal relations with devotees. Personal relationships ultimately with Krishna. Reviving our personal relationship with Krishna. So anyway, we can have hours-long discussion on that point, but take it for granted. In our line, especially in the Prabhupada branch of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, this posthumous initiation is rejected. You have to accept someone in the line from Prabhupada. And those who are saying, no, anyone can be a Ritvik, where is the connection? Again, the Ritvik has to be appointed by the person that they're representing. So you can't, if Prabhupada is not here, you can't appoint yourself to be a Ritvik representative of Prabhupada. You can't. It doesn't work like that. That's not what a Ritvik means. A Ritvik means one who is representing somebody who can't be there. Technically, that's what it means. So if the person didn't appoint you to represent them, how can you represent them? And those who say, well, we had connection because we were initiated by somebody who was initiated by Prabhupada that we think was a Ritvik, and therefore but then they reject that person. So if you reject the person that you're supposed to be representing, then who are you representing? It's a farce. So take it for granted, in our branch of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Prabhupada Sampradaya, we reject posthumous initiation. So those of you who are not yet initiated, don't be confused. You evaluate those who are candidates, or even those who are not. If you're strongly attracted to somebody who is not yet giving initiations, you can request. A request can be placed to the GBC that I'm attracted to this disciple of Srila Prabhupada and I'm not yet initiating. But again, it's very personal. I lived with Jayadvaita Maharaj for quite a few years, beginning Henry Street where I joined, and then we served together. We lived together in San Diego for a couple of years and in Alatra for a couple of years. And there was one person, this is before Jayadvaita Maharaj had started accepting disciples. There was one person who was after him. Please initiate me, just bothering him constantly. So one day, Maharaj had had enough. He said, you accept me as your spiritual authority? The person said, yes. You will do what I ask you to do? Yes. I am asking you to go find another guru. Personal connection. Personal connection. The guru doesn't have to accept you. But in the posthumous, again, paradigm, the guru has to accept you. It doesn't work. So that person was trapped because he already said, I will do what you tell me to do. So when Maharaj told him, go find another guru, he had to do it. He was trapped. So surrender, again, was the main theme of today's purport. We are here to surrender. Surrender means sometimes you have to do things that you don't like to do. And Prabhupada gives the example of Arjuna. He did not want to fight. That was the whole reason why Bhagavad Gita had to be spoken. He did not want to fight. As a devotee, he's naturally pure-hearted. Even though he's a Kshatriya, he's soft-hearted. Kshatriyas are meant to put their life on the line to protect the citizens at large. But it's not that they love to kill, no, or love to subdue, but they have to do it. That's their duty as a Kshatriya. But in this case, because the opponents were Grandfather Bhishma, his guru, Dronacharya, so many relatives, he did not want to fight. He would rather just give them the kingdom. But Krishna said, no, I want you to fight. So sometimes we're placed into situations where we may not want to do what the authorities are asking us to do. But that is what the process of surrender means. If it's all hunky-dory, you do whatever you want, then where is there any surrender? You get up when you feel like getting up, you go wherever you feel like going, and no, there's no surrender there. Surrender means you have to accept the discipline that is imposed upon you, ultimately by a guru, but until you find your guru, by some institutional authority. An institution is required for large-scale spreading of Krishna consciousness. We can't do it as individuals. The institution has to be there. So to be a member in good standing of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, you have to follow the rules and regulations that are given by the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. You can't make up your own. You can't make up your own. And inevitably, we've seen, I'm saying all this because quite a few of you here are young devotees and may not have had the experience. We've seen so many branches have split off from ISKCON. And inevitably, you have to accept the authority of one person. Now you don't accept the authority of the GBC, but there's one person running that splinter branch, and you have to do what that person tells you to do. It's his way or the highway. So authority is always there. You cannot avoid it. You can't, go join some other group and think there is no authority. There's authority everywhere. It's just natural state of being in the material world, as Prabhupada said. There's always authority. Now, you have to be fortunate enough to surrender to the right authority. And we are all very fortunate. We're here in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which is non-different from Prabhupada. He started it. He gave all the guidelines for it. He trained so many to carry on after he left. Does that mean that everyone is perfect? Again, no. Everyone is not perfect. We're trying, but actually, ontologically, we are perfect. And that's why we hate imperfection. We're coming from a perfect world. We're all actually perfect beings coming from the perfect spiritual world. And that's why we hate imperfection. But we have to understand where we are. It's just like if you go in the subway. Most of us, we hate a dirty environment. But the subway is dirty. What are you going to do? As long as you're in the subway, you're in a dirty environment. Why is the environment dirty? Because people are dirty. You watch them. They eat something, they lick their fingers, and then they want to stick out their hand. And that's why we don't shake hands. We, like Garuda, we Anjali Mudra. We give like that. Namaste. Namaste. That's what namaste means. You're offering obeisances to the person. We're not so keen to touch their hands even, because it's a dirt. So we're living in a dirty atmosphere, in the dirtiest of the 4 yugas, Kali Yuga. So we can't be surprised when there's imperfection, when there's dirt, but we stick to our process and we try to live the clean lifestyle that Prabhupada recommended, which means starting with your own individual body, clean it nicely every day, according to Ayurveda, and definitely by devotional standards. All 9 gates of the body have to be cleaned with water at least once a day. 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, the mouth, and then anus and genital. Every day, at least once a day, with water. That's real cleanliness. Which means you have to rinse your eyes every day, rinse your nostrils every day, clean your ears every day with water. Every single day, at least once a day. Especially brahmacharis can get away with once a day because you're supposed to be so regulated that you get up, you evacuate, you take a bath, and then you can run the whole rest of the day. But householders, generally at least twice a day. Vanaprastha sannyasis 3 times a day, bath. Like I said, generally brahmacharis, they're so regulated they can get away with once a day. But if you're not so regulated, then certainly after evacuation you have to take a bath. Sometimes we're so liberal, we bring people in and we give them the task of washing Krishna's pots in the kitchen, and no regard to their state of cleanliness. Don't do that. First instruction should be how to clean your body, and then when you've got that down and you're a clean fellow, then you can be allowed to go and touch Krishna's paraphernalia. So all of this, again, it's just one aspect of being disciplined. And Prabhupada said, without discipline, we cannot run an international society. So every one of us has to accept the discipline that's imposed by Guru and the society, administrators. And we know devotional service is absolute. So sometimes, yes, we get attached to one particular service, and if the authorities ask us to do something else, we become upset. But then again, where's the surrender? I've told this story several times, but it happened right here. Back in 88, I think it was, or 89, I saw one brahmachari packing to leave. I go, where are you going? I'm going to LA for a few weeks. I said, why? What's going on? My guru is coming to New York, and I know if I see him, he's going to ask me to do something that I may not want to do, so I'm going to leave. Because back in those days, there was no internet, barely anybody had a phone. So he figured if I leave, go to another temple, my guru can corner me and tell me to do something I don't want to do. So at least he was being honest. At least he was being honest. But we should be prepared. Surrender means, again, sometimes the guru, sometimes the administrative authorities may ask you to do something you don't want to do. You're very happy being a book distributor, but they may ask you to stay back and do some deity worship or whatever. Do it. Do it. One of the first realizations I had, because I joined after my 3rd year of college studying civil engineering, and the first thing they asked me to do was when I moved in, was to clean the brahmachari ashram bathrooms every day. And those of you who are brahmacharis, you know that's not an easy task. Because in those days, it was even more than this. There was 100 devotees living in the temple, brahmacharis living in the Henry Street temple. But I understood. I could have been puffed up. You know, I'm a college student, college educated. Why you ask me, give me something better? No. I understood right away that Krishna is in complete control. And any order that's coming down from Prabhupada through his administrative, that's coming from Krishna. I accepted it that way. So for months, that was my main service. Yeah, we had to go out on Harinam every day and do other things, but that was my main service. And then one day, Jayadvaita Das Brahmachari, now Jayadvaita Swami, he called me and he said, would you like to get involved in Prabhupada's book production? So I said, sure. And then he explained. He said, the reason why we're inviting you is because you're one of the few devotees who knows anything about computers, and we're getting ready to computerize the book production. So after months of having the heavy task of my main job, cleaning the stool rooms, Krishna took me out and gave me something that was more according to my psychophysical nature. But nowadays we get too hung up on that. Oh, my psychophysical nature is to be an office manager or whatever, and don't ask me to go out on hiring. No, whatever you're asked to do, you should do it. It's absolute. Devotional service is absolute. So the same credit that you're getting from going out on Harinam, you will get if they ask you to stay back and wash the pots. The same credit you get from washing the pots, you'll get if they say, no, go out on Harinam every day. Whatever we're asked to do, within reason, we have to know what the guidelines are, things that we should not do, even if we're asked to do. But if it's something within the realm of devotional service, why not do it? Once in New Dwarka, Prabhupada said, you see this rose, because somebody had brought a rose from the altar. Said, this rose, the gardener who grew this rose gets the same benefit spiritually as the person who offered the rose to Krishna. So it's absolute, whatever we're doing. If we're asked to clean the temple, if we're asked to go out on Harinam, if we're asked to distribute books, if we're asked to give a class, sometimes people go years and years without taking on the responsibility of repeating this philosophy. But that's part of the responsibility of being a devotee. Learn the philosophy and repeat the philosophy for the benefit of others. And for your own benefit, because the more you repeat the shlokas, the more you repeat the tenets of this philosophy, the more it becomes solidified in your own consciousness. So Dhruva Maharaj, he didn't start out with the highest intention. He wanted a kingdom greater than his great-grandfather's. But because he followed Narada Muni's instructions to the T, he became purified. And now Narada Muni is describing to him what the Lord looks like, and he will eventually get to see the Lord because of the mercy of his guru being pleased with him, following the process properly. And we should also be thinking like that when will I come to the point of actually seeing Krishna, not just thinking that he's standing there motionless. No, he's not. He's doing everything. Prabhupada said once in New Dwarka, he said that the deity, pointing to Rukmini Dwarkadish, is waiting to talk to you, but are you ready to converse with them? So he recommended that you go to the altar and you fold your hands, you look at the deity, in that case Dwarkadish, but here we have Radha Govinda, and you say, and we all laughed when Prabhupada said that. He said, you say, sir, this is my problem. We weren't used to being told to call the deity sir, but Prabhupada recommended you say, sir, this is the problem. Now, Krishna already knows everything about you. Vedaham samatitani vartamani tamarjana bhavishyani chabutan mam tu veda nakashina. Krishna says, I know everything, past, present, and future. And I know everyone. But me, nobody knows. So I always remember that verse whenever I've always been more on the production side, but whenever I go out and try to distribute, I always try to remember that Krishna says, I know everyone. So Krishna knows this person. Krishna knows this person. So he may or she may be, not initially acting well or interested, but Krishna knows them and Krishna wants them to have this. And you try on that basis. That person is a part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna knows them. Krishna wants them to come back to home, back to God. So our job is just to be like the postman. Just give them the mail. Here's today's mail. Perfection of Yoga. Bhagavad Gita. Oh, for you, you look very intelligent. Here's Chaitanya Charitamrita. Or Śrimad Bhāgavatam. And we remember back in the days when the first canto was completely available, the seed verse for the first canto, there's a seed verse for every canto. So for the first canto is Krishne Sadamo Pagate Dharma Jnana Nibisaha Kalo Nashadashamagesha Puranarko Denodita. This Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna for his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, everything good went with Krishna. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of Kali Yuga shall get light from this Purana. So that the book distributors that used to go out, LAX especially, LA Airport, they would recite this verse. They would stop some guy and hand him the first canto. We didn't have the complete set, just first canto. this big book, first canto is this size. And just recite this verse. This Bhagavad Puran is as brilliant as the sun. And the person would stand there transfixed. So we have to be bold to go out and distribute this knowledge, but also understanding that we're completely protected by the Lord. If a Christian wants to protect somebody, nobody can harm them, just like we know Prahlad in relation to Hiranyakashipu. So we should never be fearful. Approach anyone under any circumstances and just perform our duty without attachment. Sometimes you're successful, like yesterday, devotees were distributing, and some were taken, some weren't. Some were trying to run away as fast as possible, and some would linger. There was a nice young lady. First she bought a bunch of books, and then she actually sat down with the Harinam. So you never know. Krishna knows who's ready, who's ripe, who's not. Our job is just to go out there and give them an opportunity. So we'll stop here. If there are any questions, comments? Yes, Harinamananda Prabhu.
I was just wondering, for those, our movement has changed so much from to like majority is a congregation in the congregation. So in terms of following authority, who is their authority and how do they do that if you're living outside the temple?
Well, it depends on what level of congregation you're talking about. There's concentric circles. I remember Ramapad Maharaj was driving home this point very nicely once, right here in this temple room. Then we have concentric circles. So on the outside, you have people who maybe only come for Janmashtami. And then you have people who are a little closer, they may come a little more often, but the only service they want to do is what they want to do. Like there's one guy that he mentioned. All he wanted to do was to pick up people at the airport. So that's great. Then some devotee doesn't have to stop their service. You just call this Prabhu, hey, so-and-so Swami's coming, can you pick him up? Yeah, he jumped in his car, we go. So you're closer and closer and closer. So those who are not yet initiated but close enough to want to be initiated, obviously they have to be trained to accept the authority of the institution and of one particular person that they're going to approach as their guru. But again, it depends on where in the spectrum they fall. And it's not that our movement has changed. The Christian consciousness movement has always been Krishna in the center, and in India especially that meant a temple. And then the community at large was trained to support the temple, either by the direct financial contribution or most likely in the Varnashram tradition, if you were a Vaishya, then whatever you produced, you gave a portion to the temple for maintaining the deities. If you were the Kshatriya and you were allowed to collect taxes, and a portion of that tax was used to maintain the temple, like that. So it was always more, you could say, congregation-based. That was the tradition, that everybody lived outside the temple but supported the temple. Those who lived in the temple were very few. So we're actually going back to normal. We started out as a monastic institution, everybody living in the temple, and probably quite often too soon. I know in my own case, I had only been going for a couple of months, and then one of the devotees said, Bhakta Orville, that was my legal name. You know the philosophy, you come all the time, why don't you move in? Okay. So like that, we tended to take a chance, sometimes prematurely. I was personally present when one person was extremely disturbed person. I just joined. And we were all chanting japa one day, Henry Street Temple, and he's walking back and forth, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, and then he took his hand and just, boom, through a window. Just like that. Blood everywhere. Blood everywhere. Obviously, this person was not ready to live in a community of devotees. So nowadays, we don't have to take that chance. The temple is reserved for those who are serious, and you have to prove that you're serious. It's not that we want to drag you in too soon. If you can chant, anybody can chant, anywhere. Stay home with your parents or get an apartment, get a job, whatever, you can chant. And follow principles. But you have to prove that you're serious before you're allowed to live amongst. Because you don't want to disturb those who have given their lives to the movement. Actually, technically, we should have halfway houses where those who are semi-serious can live together and take some instruction and be trained, and then when they're fully ready, then they can move in the temple. But we're way past that point now where we have to take a chance on somebody just because they're begging to move in. No, we shouldn't take that chance. Don't disturb those of you who are very serious. All right, this is breakfast time. Let us honor Prasadam. Gantara Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, and Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.